Shalom, shalom, shalom. We are back. Um, but we're going to take a pause from the marriage covenant series. We got to address uh, keeping the law, right? All my discussions that I've had with Christians and non-believers and all this stuff, it always, when I tell them that we have to keep the law, that we're still, responsible for the tenets of the law, they always come back with, well, we can't keep all of them. There's too many to keep. What about this? What about that? And they tend to go to the things that are not uh, required, as far as like, what about the sacrifices? What about fringes? What about um, um, stoning and killing people for sin and things like that, right? So, and we're going to get into the fringes as well. Um, but I think we need to go, law for law and really see what we're able to keep, right? What's plausible to keep, right? In the name of Christ, right? Um, so we're gonna go through each law. I think there's about 30 different categories, right? Um, and we're just gonna go through them either yay or nay, right? So this first part will be, are we able to keep it? Just answering that question. Are we able to keep this specific law? The next video will go into each of those laws and see, are we required to keep those laws, right? Or did the Christ Yeshua sacrifice, kind of nullify that, right? Um, so it's either going to be, can are we able to keep it? Now, as we go through this video, don't get triggered, right? When I say, are we able to, that's not saying that we are required to, right? I want to put that out there, right? So don't get triggered. Don't be in the comments arguing, right? Trying to debate. All I'm saying is, are we able to keep it? Now, the next video, you can get in the comments and we can debate and we can discuss, right? But for this one, we're just going to simply ask the question, are we able to do this? Are we physically able to do this, right? Now, would it make sense sometimes? Probably not. Is it feasible? Maybe, but who knows, right? Um, because like I said, we with these discussions that I have, right? And it's with Bible believing Christians, right? Mainly. Uh, it always come to, okay, well, we're not under law. And I always ask them, okay, well, can you murder? No, we got to keep the Ten Commandments. Well, the Ten Commandments are a part of the law. We can't distinguish the 10 from the whole Torah, right? That's what Christians like to do, right? And they philosophize and say, oh well, because these 10 are named in the New Testament, that's all we have to do. All this stuff. Okay, well, really, you only keep it 9 because you don't keep the Shabbat. So now you're saying we only got to keep 9, right? And then if you really look into the New Testament, there's over 1,000 commandments in the New Testament. So 1,000 or 600, right? Or 613, however you want to say it, right? Um, but then when you really try, and when you really try to just kind of pick their brain on lawfulness and what that looks like, they always defer back to love. And it's like, well, all you got to do is love your neighbor as yourself and love God. And then when you ask them, okay, what does that look like? They don't have an answer because now it's on what they feel is love, right? Their opinion of what love looks like, right? As opposed to going to the standard that the Most High has already put forth for us and what that looks like, right? Because every culture is different. Love in America, right, might look, loving your neighbor as yourself might look different than Japan, right? It might be okay to steal something over there. Who knows, right? Every culture is different. Every part of the world is different. We're not all the same, right? And that's what makes the tour so beautiful because um, people from different cultures, from different backgrounds, from different countries all have the same standard, right? It's simple. It's simple. We all go to the same source, and we know, okay, this is what we got to do. X, Y, Z, right? It's not according to our culture. It's not according to our upbringing. It's according to the Most High, right? So I think that's the biggest disconnect that I see when ministering and when witnessing the gospel and Torah to people, especially Christians, is that they get hung up on the law, right? And they can't distinguish that um, some things that we just can't do. Some things are not even um, required of a male, right? So for me, I'm from Judah, so the Levitical priesthood precepts and laws don't apply to me. So I couldn't keep all 613 anyway because I'm not a Levitical priest, right? Also, there's laws pertaining to women. Men can't keep that law, right? So when the text says that Christ kept the law perfectly and was without sin, he kept those laws pertaining to him perfectly, right? Because there's agricultural laws for farmers, right? As we know, Christ was a carpenter, so he did not keep those farming uh, laws, right? That doesn't mean he broke them, but he wasn't required to keep them because he didn't fall under that, right? And as we go through it, and really dive into it, most of the laws are circumstantial. If XYZ happens, then you do this. If that's contingent on something happening, right? If you see your enemy's ox in the ditch, help them out, right? If I don't ever see my enemy's ox in the ditch, I can never help it out. That doesn't mean I broke that law. It means that I've never had the opportunity to perform that law, right? And if I don't have any enemies, that doesn't apply to me anyway, right? So there's just a lot. There's just a big disconnect, and since I started walking in the truth, I would say from 2017, I have yet to come across a video that really just outlines the laws that we are required to or that are still applicable to us today, right? Just a kind of like not one size fits all list. Everybody list might be different. We might go through this and you might feel like, oh, but no, we can't keep that. Okay, cool, right? This is not the end all be all list, right? But I think it gives us a good footing on the mindset to go into the Torah with and really read the Torah and really figure out, okay, can I keep this? Yeah, I can keep that. Okay, I can't keep this. This one, it don't really apply to me, but now I know. So when I do come across it, I'll be mindful of it. Stuff like that. I haven't seen a video of anybody just going, you know, law for law and just going yay or nay, right? And I think that's what we need, especially for those that are ministering and witnessing to our loved ones, our friends and families, and instead of saying, well, you got to keep the law. Okay, what does that look like? In real time, what does that look like? You know what I'm saying? So I think this would be a good video. I think this is a good teaching tool, right? To kind of go over and formulate into your message, right? Because we all have our way of witnessing. We all got our go-to scriptures that we go to when presenting the truth to people, right? So I think this is just another tool in that toolbox to kind of um, make it even more uh, personable, right? Because now you can literally ask him, hey, can you do this law right here? Is it going to hurt you? Are you going out your way to do this? Did Christ do away with this? Because this one right here isn't named in the New Testament, right? But you still want somebody to do this to you, right? So I think it's just a good teaching mechanism. Like I said, we're gonna go through there, and it's gonna be probably a short video. it's either yay or nay. I'm not going to go into too much expounding. That'll be on the next video. And that's when we're really going to get into the meat of the details of each law and see, okay, now is this one, yeah, we can. Yes, I'm able to do it, but am I required to do it? That video is going to get into the nitty gritty of it, right? But let's get started. Let me go through a few scriptures. Of course, Matthew 5:17, think not that I come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. All right. So Christ himself said that he did not come to destroy the law, right? And Christians preach via Paul the total opposite, that Christ did away with the law. So, I mean, yeah. So Christ himself is telling you that he did not come to destroy the law. So his death, burial, resurrection did not destroy the law, but it fulfilled aspects of the law, right? So let's go to Acts 21, 24, right? Uh, and this is James talking to Paul after Paul was accused by Jews of not keeping the law and teaching other Jews to not circumcise the kids, right? Take them, or them take and purify thyself with them and be at charges with them, that they may shave their heads and all may know that those things, the charges, right, of not keeping the law and teaching your kid, or teaching Jews not to circumcise their kids, whereof they were informed concerning thee, are nothing. So those charges are not true, right? Because we know who you are. But thou thyself also walkest orderly, right, and keepest the law, right? So he's telling Paul, do this so everybody know that you keep the law and walk is orderly. So you're in order. You're not out of order, right? You're not going against Torah, but you keep the law, right? Um, so this is post resurrection that James, just an example of that the law is being kept, right? Um, just I mean, people debate about the vow, you know, um, what were we talking about? Um, I think it's right here. Then Paul took the men, and the next day purified himself with them, entered the temple to signify the accomplishment of the days of purification, until that an offering should be offered for every one of them. So even then, because the temple was still active, there James told Paul to do a sacrifice, right? Not a sin sacrifice, but an offering, a purification offering, right? A Nazarene vow, or something of that sort, right? Um, yeah, which have a vow in them, right? Acts 21:23. Do therefore this that we say to thee, we have four men which have a vow in them, right? So anyway, so this is just an example of post-resurrection. The temple is still functioning, and James, the highest apostle, the leader, is telling Paul to do a vow sacrifice at the temple, right? Not a sin sacrifice. That's been done away with Christ, but a vow sacrifice, right? And also, too, we see that Paul is keeping the law. We see that James is uh, basically signifying that Paul is indeed keeping the law, which means that James is keeping the law, right? They're keeping Torah. They're not going off of just love your God with all your heart and love thy neighbor. They are keeping Torah, what applies to them, what is still applicable in their time, right? And being that the temple was still erected, they could still do the vow sacrifices, right? That's very key, right? Um, let's go to another one. I think this is probably the most damning one against not keeping the law. Romans 3:31. Do we then make void the law through faith? God forbid. Yea, we establish the law, right? And this word law is the same law used in Matthew 5:17, right? So let's go to it, just keep it on the up and up. Okay, G 3551. Let's see. The main thing is of the Mosaic law and referring according to the context, either to the volume of the law or to its contents, right? The Christian religion, the law demanding faith, the moral instruction given by Christ, especially the precept concerning love. That's where they get hung up at, right? Uh, let's go to the actual definition is, let's say, law through the idea of prescriptive usage, genital case, regulations, especially of Moses, including the volume also of the gospel or figurative principle, right? So this is the same Matthew 5:17, same law, right? All right. We then make void the law through faith? God forbid, yea, we establish the law. So Paul is answering the age-old question. Do we make void the law because now we have faith in Christ? He said, God forbid. We establish the law. How do we establish the law? It's more than just love God with all your heart and love thy neighbor as yourself. It's more than that, right? Because he goes on to say that he wouldn't know covetousness unless the law told him not to lust, right? So there's we have to know what pleases the Most High, right? And that goes into my last scripture before we dive into the uh, Torah, to the Galatians. He says, "But if while we seek to be justified by Christ, we ourselves also are found sinners, is therefore Christ a minister of sin? God forbid." So while we seek to be justified by Christ, this is what he's saying. While we seek to be justified by Christ, and we're still found to be sinners, basically Christ is coming off as the minister of sin. Like basically, when you seek to be justified by Christ and you're still sinning, you're making Christ the minister of sin. And God forbid you do that, right? You're not supposed to do that, right? So as we seek to be justified by Christ, we can't keep breaking the law because sin is the breaking of the commandments, the breaking of Torah, right? So we can't uh, put Christ in a bad light and present and proclaim His name, right, and walk around as believers in Christ, but yet still sin. Because now people look at it like, oh, you believe in Christ? Oh, so Christ is co-signing your behavior. And that's not the case. He's not co-signing breaking the Torah, right? So that was the last of that. Now, so this we have. I found this on friendsofsabbath.org, right? Now, I don't ascribe to their ideology, theology. This is just a source of an outline of the laws, right? That's it. All this stuff, I don't ascribe to, right? Um, and even with the 613, there's debate if there's even 613. There's probably more. Some of the laws are duplicated. All this stuff, right? But this is just a rough guide. Don't get hung up on. Oh, there's not really 613. That's man-made. Okay, cool. Yeah, y'all can have that, right? This is just a rough outline. Instead of instead of me going through and writing each one down, that I think this is just right. So that's why I said this is not an end all be all list, but this is just a good starting point, a teaching tool to use when ministering the truth to your family and friends, right? All right. So now we do. So I have this set up, relevant laws, right? So we can still do it. I'm a copy and paste. I'm gonna send it over there, right? And that's gonna be this is gonna be our working list right here, right? All right, here we go. God. Remember, I told you about there's about 30 categories, right? So the first category is God. To know that God exists, I'm pretty sure we can do that. Not to entertain the idea that there's any God but the eternal. Yes, we can do that. Not to blaspheme, we can do that. To hallow God's name, we can do that. Not to profane God's name, yes. To know that God is one, a complete unity, yes. to love God, to fear him reverently, not to put the word of God to the test, to imitate his good and upright ways. So we can do all this. So let's do that. Oh, dang, can I even copy this? Let's see. All right, there we go. So I'll reformat that. All right, next one, the law. To honor the old and wise, yes. To learn Torah and to teach it, yes, we can still do that. We're able to do that. To cleave to those who know him, yes. Not to add to the commandments of the Torah, yes. Not to take away from the commandments of the Torah, yes. That every person shall write a scroll of the Torah for himself. Yes, we can do that, right? That's not too far fetched, right? So far so good. But y'all see the principle that I'm kind of establishing is like just read it, and if you can still do it, why not do it, right? It's not that hard, right? So far so good. That's what is that? That's 110. That's 16 right there that we can still do just off the rip, right? Okay, signs and symbols. To circumcise the male offspring, we can still do that. To put fringes on the corners of clothing, we can still do that. To bind God's word on the head, we can still do that. To bind God's word on the arm, to affix the mezuzah to the doorposts and gates of your house, we can still do this, right? Now, how that look, that's different, right? Because we got them Jews over there, got boxes on their head, right? Because they doing this one to bind God. So they put the little boxes to felon around their arms and all that stuff. Put the little boxes, they got the Torah in there. Hey, that's different, right? All right, let's go. Prayer and blessing. To pray to God, yes. To read the Shema in the morning and at night, yes. To recite grace after meals, not to lay down a stone for worship. Yes, we can still do that. So far, so good. So again, I think just right here, we see that, dang, this is not, the Torah is not grievous like the scriptures say. It's not far off in heaven where man can't go. It's nigh unto us. It's easy. It's easy for us to do this, right? This ain't hard. And let me just go and see to circumcise the male offspring. Now, again, this is where it goes to circumstantial. If you never have a male, if you have all daughters, this won't apply to you. Simple as that, right? This is an example of if I never have a daughter, or if I never have a son, and I'm not able to circumcise a male offspring, I'm not breaking this commandment. I'm just not able to perform it, right? All right, love and brotherhood. To love all human beings who are of the covenant, yes. Not to stand by idly when a human life is in danger. Not to wrong anyone in speech, yes. Not to carry tales, not to cherish hatred in one's heart, not to take revenge, not to bear a grudge, not to put any Jew to shame, not to curse any other Israelite, not to give occasion to the simple minded to stumble on the road, yes. Um, to rebuke the sinner, to relieve a neighbor of his burden, help to unload his beast, yes. To assist in replacing the load upon a neighbor's beast, not to leave a beast that is falling down beneath his burden unaided. Yes. So again, this is the Torah's definition of love, right? Doing this type of stuff. But you wouldn't know that if you're saying all this stuff is done away with, right? And we can equate it. Hold on. Like I said, I'm gonna reformulate all this. Now we can equate this to what? Are we riding around in beasts? No. Uh, to relieve a neighbor of his burden and help to unload his beast. What does that look like today? Maybe helping people with their groceries, helping people load up. I'm a contractor, so at Home Depot, Lowe's, Floor and Decor, if I see somebody struggling, go over there and help them load up their materials, right? You see people moving, a couch, mattress. Hey, yeah, I need some help. This stuff is not hard. I think we overthink it, right? All right. the poor and unfortunate, not to afflict an orphan or a widow, yes, not to reap the entire field, yes, to leave the unreaped corners of the field or orchard for the poor, yes, not to gather gleanings, to leave the gleanings for the poor, not to gather the imperfect clusters of the vineyard, to leave the imperfect clusters of the vineyard for the poor. And you see how that makes sense, right? If it's not perfect, just leave it because the poor, you're sustaining the poor, right? Not to return to take a forgotten sheaf, to leave the forgotten sheaves for the poor. So if you forgot something in the field, a tool, just leave it because the poor are gonna be able to use it. Not to refrain because you left it for a reason. Because we all believe, right? There's no uh coincidences, right? So you left it for a reason. Not to refrain from maintaining a poor man and giving him what he needs, giving to the needy, right? To give charity according to one's means, right? So we can do all this. So far, that's 52 that we can do. Now, does that 52 apply to everybody? No. Some of that stuff is circumstantial, especially all of this. If I don't have a field, I can't not reap the corners, right? If I don't have a sheaf, I can never leave it in the field, right? Simple as that, man. To love the stranger, yes. Not to wrong the stranger in speech. Not to wrong the stranger in buying. Oh, okay. Look, to love the stranger. Not to wrong the stranger in speech. Hey, y'all one West. Y'all be on them corners, man, berating them Gentiles, man, especially Edom, bro. Y'all better watch out. Not to wrong the stranger in speech, not to wrong the stranger in buying or selling, not to intermarry with Gentiles, to exact the debt of an alien, to lend to an alien at interest. Now, we can still do this. Well, yeah, we can still do this. We can still not intermarry with Gentiles, right? It'll be hard because you really got to do some lineage. Everything is mixed, but it's not. Yeah, we can, you know, we can still do that. Now, do we have to? That's the next video. So don't get listen. I'm mixed, so hey, we're good. Don't get tight. It'll be all right. We're gonna go through it. We're gonna go. We're gonna expound on this in the next video, right? Marriage, divorce, and family to honor father and mother. Yes. So that's 58 so far. I haven't come across one that like, nah, we can't. Nah, that's 58. So far so good. To honor father and mother, yes, not to smite a father or mother. Y'all YNs, man. But listen to your mom and dad. That's how you live long on this earth. That's one that in the 10, that's the only one that is connected to a promise. Honor your father and mother so that you can live long on earth. Right, that's important, man. That's important. Not to curse a father or mother, to reverently fear father and mother, to be fruitful and multiply, yes. Homosexuality is out of there. You cannot multiply being homosexual. Simple as that. That a eunuch shall not marry a daughter of Israel. Okay, now here we go. It's getting kind of crazy now. That a bastard, Namzer, illegitimate son, shall not marry the daughter of a Jew. That an Ammonite or Moabite shall never marry the daughter of an Israelite. Not to exclude a descendant of Esau from the community of Israel for 3 generations. I think it's been longer than 3 generations. Come on now. Not to exclude an Egyptian from the community of Israel for 3 generations. I think it's been more than 3 generations since the Exodus. That there shall be no harlot in Israel. That is, that there shall be no intercourse with a woman without previous marriage with a deed of marriage and formal declaration of marriage. That's fornication. You can't be doing fornicating. You got to be married. To take a wife by the sacrament of marriage. So there's customs, right, that you got to follow to be married. That the newly married husband shall be free for 1 year to rejoice with his wife. That a bridegroom shall be exempt for a whole year from taking part in any public labor, such as military service, guarding the wall, and similar duties. Not to withhold food, clothing, or conjugal rights from the wife. That the woman suspected of adultery shall be dealt with as prescribed to Torah. Nah, we can't do that one because now that's passing judgment. So anything that has to do with passing judgment, according to Torah, we can't do. We can't do that because it didn't say women are not supposed to do adultery. It says that the woman suspected of adultery shall be dealt with as prescribed in Torah, right? So, well, no, this is suspected. So this is like the spirit of jealousy. If we go into it, let's go into it. And she got to drink that cup. I believe that's what that is. Number 5. Wait, let me see. What is that? Number 5. I think she got the spirit of jealousy come on her husband, and then she got to drink that cup. And if she swell up, that means she guilty. Yeah, yeah. Here we go. And this is the law of jealousies. When a wife goeth aside to another instead of her husband and is defiled, but when the spirit of jealousy cometh upon him, and he be jealous over his wife, he shall set the woman before the Lord, and the priest shall execute upon her all this law. Then shall the man be guiltless from iniquity, and this woman shall bear her iniquity. So here we go. And see, honestly, this is um, really there's a good breakdown with the cup that Christ drank, right? Because he was supposed to drink. That was supposed to be our cup because we was a harlot, right? We committed adultery against the Most High via our sins, right? So that was our cup that we were supposed to drink, right? And they said that during the crucifixion, the way that he's hung, right, that his stomach would have swelled up, right? So look, so when he hath made her to drink the water, then it shall come to pass that if she be defiled and have done trespass against her husband, that the water that causes the curse shall enter into her and become bitter, and her belly shall swell, and her thigh shall rot, and the woman shall be a curse among her people. So that's what that's talking about. Now with that, we cannot do that anyway because there's no priest, right? So, but I think that's a good kind of breakdown to tie it into Christ with the cup that he's talking about, like this cup when he was in the garden. And he told the father, if it be your will, let this cup pass. Nevertheless, your will be done. That's the cup of adultery that we were supposed to drink, right? So we can't do that one, right? Let me keep going, and we're gonna go back to that. That one who defames his wife's honor by falsely accusing her of unchastity before marriage must live with her all his lifetime. That's still, I mean, we can still do that. That a man may not divorce his wife concerning who he has published an evil report about. So if you lie and say your wife been cheating on you, you put that out there and you come to find out that she hasn't, you can't ever divorce her. Serves you right. To divorce by a formal written document, that one who divorced his wife shall not remarry her if after the divorce she had been married to another man. Right. That a widow whose husband died childless must not be married to anyone but her deceased husband's brother. This is only in effect insofar as it requires the procedure of release below. To marry the widow of a brother who has died childless, this is only in effect insofar as it requires the procedure of release below, that the widow formally release the brother-in-law if he refuses to marry. So yeah, we can kind of do this because I mean ultimately the brother-in-law is not going to do it. If you, I mean, because you can refuse to marry, and that's still lawful, right? So that's not too far fetched, right? Um, but mainly it seemed like the widow uh, would kind of press the issue about it. But either way, that's you know that's something to think about. I feel like we can if you gotta if the widow if her husband has a brother, right? If he doesn't have a brother, this doesn't apply. But if he does have a brother, but if he's already married, you know, I don't think that'll go over too well. But okay, let's go back to it. So all these we can do. The Enoch should not marry a daughter of Israel. I mean, yeah. I mean, I feel like that's still good. Um, but the bastard shall not marry the daughter of a Jew. That we can still do that. An illegitimate son. So I mean, if he and see, it get kind of dicey, right? All that stuff was in order back then, right? Um, an Ammonite Moabite should never marry a daughter of it. So this we can still do that, but like I said, we can still do this, right? But we'll see that Christ in Ephesians 2, he broke down these laws of this wall of separation, right? And this is what some of those laws that he broke down. But we'll still send it over. Um, there should be no harlot. I think that's yeah. Take a wife, yeah. Now the bridegroom shall be exempt for a whole year from taking part in any public labor such as military service. Now, I don't know. Obviously, we don't have we're not living in the state, the biblical state of Israel, right? So I would say that probably don't apply. That'd be hard to do. I mean, unless you got paternity leave. But yeah. Um, but it's still, I mean, it's still not too far fetched. Still, if you can take a whole year off, but you won't be guarding the wall. I don't know how the military work, but that was more for in that day though. You know what I'm saying? That way he won't go off and die after just having a kid. So I probably won't put that one because that's more uh in that time. You know, we don't live in that time. I mean, I don't know how the military service work. I mean, it's definitely not the army of the Lord. So we definitely not guarding a wall. Um, so I'm not gonna put that one on. We can do that. The woman suspected of abduction shall be dealt with. So this whole right here, we can't do that because the priest, we don't have a priest to do the offering up to. Um, this one we can do. If you falsely accuse your wife, you must live with her forever. You can't divorce your wife if you put an evil report, written document. We can do that. And this one, I feel like this one we can still do. We can still practice it, but I mean, uh, yeah. So let's do this. We got so we got this one. I feel like all this we can still do. Okay, but not 72. We're gonna exclude 72. And again, y'all might say that we can do 72, right? It's not an end all be all. But I say that's we're not. It's not the armor of the Most High. There's no wall to guard. So I mean, that's just me though. So we can do this one. We can't do 74 because there's no priest that's prescribed in the offering of the spirit of jealousy. Um, we can still do this. Now, I would say this one too, right? Because ultimately, the brother-in-law can say no and be released, right? Um, and that's, I mean, and the thing is, you got to think, yeah, that's not. It's crazy because I'm thinking about, it, like, man, that'll be weird, right? But it's not on us to think of if it's going to be weird or that's not how we do it now. This is what the Most High said, right? He said it for a reason, right? So it ain't no, it's not for us to understand, right? Now, let's keep going. Now, obviously, come on, we can still do all this. There's not even a reason to even go through this, right? But provocative winking. You can't be flirting with your kinfolk. God dang. Not a kid. no incest with your mother, with your father, with your father's wife, like they were doing in Corinth, in the Corinthian church. You can't lay with your sister, your father's wife's daughter, your son's daughter. You can't do all that. You can't commit incest with your one of your daughter's daughter. Like all this weird stuff. Cannot do it. Incest. You can't do incest, right? You can't have incest with another man's wife. Not to commit sodomy with the male. Can't homosexuality. Um, not to have right intercourse with a woman in her menstrual period. Like, come on now. Women with bees, you can't do that. Men with bees, you can't do that. Oh wow. Not to castrate the male of any species, neither a man nor a domestic or wild beast. No. Wow. That's new to me. So getting your dogs neutered. We are not supposed to do that, guys. That is interesting to me. Wow. I've never got any of my dogs neutered. So I guess he lucky. Wow, that's interesting. And that's not gonna, it says domesticated. Dogs are domesticated. Cats, you know, that's interesting. All right, times and seasons. That the new month shall be solemnly proclaimed as holy, and the months and years shall be calculated by the Supreme Court. That's a little, they add a little bit to that. I don't know about that Supreme Court. Let's go to Exodus 12 too, just to get a. All right, that's yeah, that just fall in the biblical calendar. So not by the Supreme Court. I don't know. Again, I don't subscribe to the Friends of Sabbath everything, but yeah, the new month shall be solemnly proclaimed. That's fine. Not to travel on the Sabbath outside the limits of one's place of residence. Yeah, maybe we can still do that. But Christ did. Hey, it's lawful to do good on Shabbat, right? So there's that. To sanctify the Shabbat, yeah, not to do work on Shabbat, to rest on Shabbat, to celebrate the festivals, to rejoice. You can still do that. To appear in the sanctuary on the festival, we can't do that. There's no sanctuary, right? So we can't do that. To remove leaven on the eve of Passover, we can do that. To rest on the first day of Passover, not to do work on the first day of Passover, to rest on the seventh day of Passover, not to do work on the seventh day of Passover, to eat matzah, unleavened bread, no leaven being the Israelites' possession during Passover. We can do all that, not to eat any food containing leaven, not to eat leaven on Passover. The leaven should not be seen in Israel's home during Passover. To discuss the departure from Egypt on the first night of Passover. Yep, we just did that. Not to eat leaven after midday on the 14th of Nisan. Let's take a Deuteronomy midday. Let's see what that's talking about. But see how when you really go down through here, you can find stuff that's interesting. Because I'm trying to figure out what this midday 16:30. Thou shalt not eat leavened bread with it. 7 days shalt thou eat unleavened bread therewith, even the bread of affliction, for thou camest forth out of the land of Egypt in haste. That thou mayest remember the day when thou camest forth. Thou shalt thou shalt eat no leavened bread with it. I don't see how they got midday out of that. Um, not to eat leaven after midday. Yeah, that's a reach. I don't know. Again, I don't know about that one. But I mean, we can still do it. Obviously, I just went to the reference, and so they count 49 days from the time of the cutting of the Omer. Uh, see, that's difficult. That's difficult. We can still count because obviously, uh, they do the people do the counting of the Omer with the 49 days. Let's go to this. But see, if it's based on See, and ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the week off. So, oh yeah, yeah. So basically, that's counting the days up to Pentecost. So yeah, we can still do that, right? Because Christ was the wave off. He was way before the Most High after Shabbat when they went to the grave on Sunday, the first day of the week, right? Um, so we can still do that. That's no biggie. Um, to rest on Pentecost, see, not to do work on the Feast of Pentecost, to rest on Rosh Hashanah, Feast of Trumpets, not to do works, to hear the sound of the trumpet. Okay, so you gotta at least hear the shofar. Now, how that look like, you can go online and hear that, right? To fast on Yom Kippur, that's debatable. Some people don't fast. Some people say it's not a fast. Some people say it is because it says afflict your soul, but it doesn't. I mean, we fast in my house, so not to eat or drink on Yom Kippur, not to do work on Yom Kippur, to rest on Yom Kippur, to rest on the first day of Feast of Tabernacles. So basically, just the rest on the eighth day of the Feast of Tabernacles, not to do work on the eighth day, to take during Sukkot a palm branch and the other tree plants, to dwell in booths 7 days during Sukkot. So we can really do all this, right? We can really do all this, except which one was it? The um oh, to appear in the sanctuary. So we can't appear in the sanctuary. So I think that's three so far, right? If I'm not mistaken. So out of out of 142, we've only found three that we physically cannot do, right? So we can't appear for the sanctuary, but we can do all this. So, like I said, this ain't rocket science. If you just read the Torah, you'll know what you can and cannot do. Or find a list online like I did and just run through there, right? All right, dietary laws. Definitely, we can still do this. Examine the marks of cattle that show distinguish clean from unclean. Yep. Not to eat the flesh of unclean beasts. To examine the marks of in fishes to distinguish the clean from the unclean. Not to eat unclean fish. Examine the fowls. Not to eat unclean fowls. Locusts. Not to eat the worm found in fruit. Like all this, what I'm saying? All this stuff we can do. Not to eat the flesh of a beast that is torn. Not to eat the flesh of a beast that's died to itself. Right. So look, not to eat a lamb removed from a living beast. Can't do that. Not to slaughter an animal in its young on the same day. So if you're not a farmer, if you're not a butcher, this don't apply to you. I would never, I don't want to say never, but I don't own animals. So I would never have to worry about slaughtering an animal and its young on the same day, right? Not to take the mother bird with the young, to set the mother bird free when taking the nest, not to eat the flesh of an ox that was condemned to be stoned, not to boil meat, not to boil meat with milk, not to eat flesh with milk. And see, this is why um, the Jews over there, they say, even like pizza with hamburger meat on it. That's milk, that's meat and milk, right? Not put that. But that's Talmud. This is something deeper than that. Um, not to eat the thigh vein with shrimp, not to eat the fat of the offering, not to eat. Oh, we can't do that. We can't do that. Well, let me see. Leviticus 7:23. Speaking to children, saying you should not eat no manner of fat of ox. Oh yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can do that. But it's on the fat of the offering. So whatever you got to figure out what's offered, you can't eat the fat on that, right? So it's not like um you get a steak and the fat that goes on the steak. It's nothing like that. When you look into it's the fat around like the intestines and all that, and the organs type stuff. But like I said, but we can still do it. It's still applicable. Not to eat the blood, yes, to cover the blood of undomesticated animals, fellow that have been killed. Okay, yeah. Not to eat or drink like a glutton or a drunkard, not to rebel against father and mother. So yeah, we can still do all this. Dietary laws are still in effect. I know y'all hate that because y'all love y'all pig, y'all sea bugs, y'all love eating that nasty stuff. But nope, can't do it. Business practices, not to do wrong in buying or selling, not to make a loan to an Israelite on interest, not to borrow on interest, because this would cause the lender to sin, right? And this is Israelite to Israelite, not to take part in any usurious transaction between borrower and lender, neither as a surety, nor as a witness, nor as a writer of the bond for them. So don't be doing no janky business, right? You know it's kind of janky. Y'all finagling the deal. Don't do that. The Most High is not blessing you. When you got that, oh yeah, that's good. When you got to finagle a deal, right? That's not. And I think Christians got this bad. Oh, it all worked. Look at the Lord. Look at God, bro. The deal is finagled. It's it's barely holding together. Not a shred of integrity is in that deal. But you saying, look at God, right? Only because you're quote you think you're getting what you want, right? And then 6 months later, it's repossessed. You're in debt, right? But look at God though, right? So now you back at the altar, right? Pleading and begging the Most High to help you with your debt, right? And now you writing a seed. Now you sowing a seed for debt cancellation when he told you not to do it anyway. Don't be doing those janky deals, right? Uh, to lend to a poor person, you can do that. Not to demand from a poor person payment of his debt when the creditor knows that he cannot pay, nor press him. Look, don't press people that you know ain't got the bread, right? This is the Most High wisdom, man. If you know that person is poor and you know they ain't really ain't got it yet, right? And they waiting for them taxes to hit, just wait. Don't press them. Do not press them because they don't have it, right? Not to take and pledge utensils used in preparing food, okay? Not to exactly pledge from a debtor by force. So you can't be taking nobody's jacket or shoes or cars or jewelry and say, no, I'm taking this until you pay me back. No, you can't strong on that payment. This is the Most High speaking. And see, Israel need to know this, right? We got to learn how to act, not to keep the pledge from his owner at the time when he needs it. So basically, what this is saying is, if a person pledged their shawl or their blanket, right, in this time, and it get cold, they can come back and get that from you because they need it. Now, when they don't need it no more, they can give it back to you, right? Let's go to Deuteronomy 24:12. See, in any case, thou shalt deliver him the pledge again when the sun goes down, that he may sleep in his own raiment, and bless thee, and it shall be righteousness unto thee before the Lord thy God. So again, if somebody pledged something and they need it back, you got to give it back to them, and that's counted to you as righteousness. And then when they don't need it, they'll give it back to you, right? Uh, to return a pledge to his owner, not to take a pledge from a widow. See, y'all see the bad businesses. taking advantage of these widows. Their husband gone, so they ain't, the man is gone, and y'all taking advantage of these single women, the widows. Y'all wrong for that. Not to commit fraud in measuring, not to ensure that scales and weights are correct, not to possess inaccurate measures and weights. Like, come on, this is good business. Like, how is this? Why are we not still following this? How did Christ do away with good, wholesome business practices? But see, them Christians are wicked though. Christians are wicked, man. They'll do you something bad and then say God is the reason for their come up and bless the Lord for it because it all worked out. So anytime they by crook or hook, right? They gonna give God the glory, their God the glory, not the Most High, their God, whatever God they worship, right? They'll do you something bad. They'll get down on you. They'll finesse you, knowing they finesse you, but because you fell for it, they feel like, oh, that was the God. That's look at God. He fell for it. See, that's for a reason. Like, they wicked, most of them. All right, employees, servants, and slaves. All right, man, this might be a longer video than I thought. We might do part two. Uh, not to delay the payment of a hired, right? That the hired laborer shall be permitted to eat of the produce he is reaping. Yep. That the hired laborer shall not take more than he can eat. Can y'all even see? My bad, y'all. An hour in. All right. All right. There we go. All right. So not to delay payment of a hired man's wages, that the hired laborer shall be permitted to eat the produce he is reaping. That the hired laborer shall not take more than he can eat. See, you're able to eat what you produce, but don't take more than you can eat. Don't be greedy. So see how the Most High handles both sides of it, right? That a hired laborer shall not eat produce that is not being harvested, to pay wages to the hired man at a due time. See, again, I have day laborers, right? I cannot hold that man's money until the next day, especially when I know I got it. That's wrong. Even if I don't got it, I got to make a way, or I shouldn't ask him to work, right? So I can't hold that man's wages, right? It's due at the due time. At the end of the day, when he's done working, I got to pay that. To deal judicially with the Hebrew bondman in accordance with the laws pertaining to him, not to compel the Hebrew servant to do the work of a slave, not to sell a Hebrew servant as a slave, not to treat a Hebrew servant rigorously, not to permit a Gentile to treat harshly a Hebrew bondman so to him, not to send away a Hebrew bondman servant empty-handed when he is freed from service, to bestow liberal gifts upon the Hebrew bondsman at the end of his term of service, and the same should be done to a Hebrew bondwoman, to redeem a Hebrew maidservant, not to sell a Hebrew maidservant to another person, to espouse a Hebrew maidservant, to keep the Canaanite slave forever. Like, come on, we're definitely not doing that. Not to surrender a slave who has fled to the land of Israel to his owner who lives outside of Palestine. We're not doing that. Not to wrong such a slave, not to muzzle a beast while it's working in produce, which it can eat and enjoy. So with these slaves, like these slave laws, now the hired labor, that's different. That's employees, right? That's day laborers. That's contract work, right? So we can still do this. Um, Bondman, like we're not owning nobody, right? Even a fellow Israelite, we don't own them. They're not our bondman, right? They're not our nah. They'll fall into a higher labor. The bondman we're not doing, right? Not to compel a Hebrew servant to do the work of a slave. Um, what's considered the work of a slave. So we're not doing that. We're not sending that one over. Not to sell a Hebrew servant as a slave. We can't sell nobody anyway. We can do this one. Um, we can do this one. And I say that as a hired servant or employee, not to treat him harsh, right? And that's anybody, not just a Hebrew. That's anybody. Not to permit a Gentile to treat harshly a Hebrew bond and sold to them. We're not selling nobody. Not to send away a Hebrew bond servant empty-handed. Means it's free from service. We're not doing that. We don't have bond servants. We're not doing that. To redeem a Hebrew maid servant. Let's see, Exodus 21. See, this kind of get dicey because it's like if she pleases unto him, patrol to himself. Yeah, we're not selling our daughters to be no maid servant. That's for sure. So we're not doing that. Um, so we're not doing that. Um, not to sell a Hebrew maid servant to a person. We're not selling them to espouse a Hebrew maid servant. No, to keep a Canaanite, we're not doing that. Not to send a slave. We're not doing that. And white slaves. Not to muzzle a beast. We can do that. Nope. So again, you might not agree with this. You might say, no, we can still do that. We can still do that. We can still redeem maid servants and all that stuff. Like that's your list. But again, this is just a rough list, right? So during that for that one, there was a couple that we couldn't do. All right. Okay, vows, oaths, and swearing. You know, Christ talked about this. Let your yea be your yea. But again, that's the next video, right? We'll talk about that. But as far as just can we do it or we can't do it, we can still do this. A man should fulfill whatever he has uttered. Yeah, you should stand on what you said. Not to swear needlessly, mm. Not to violate an oath or swear falsely, to decide in cases of annulment of vows according to the rules set forth in Torah. Let's see what that is. Number 32. Annulment. If a man vow a vow to the Lord or swear an oath to bind his soul with a bond, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceeded out of his mouth. If a woman also vow a vow unto the Lord and bind herself by a bond, being in her father's house in her youth, and her father hear her vow, and her bond wherewith she hath bound her soul, and her father shall hold his peace at her, then all her vows shall stand. Every bond wherewith she hath bound her soul shall stand. Okay. So yeah, we can still do this. Not to break a vow, to swear by his name truly. Deuteronomy 10:20. Thou shalt fear the Lord thy God, him shalt thou serve, and to him shalt thou cleave and swear by his name. Okay. Wow. Didn't quite say not to swear. We'll get into that. We'll get into that. Not to delay in the fulfilling vows or bring vowed or free offerings. So yeah, ooh. So part of this we can do. The free will offerings we cannot do, right? So I'm gonna send all this over, and then we're gonna dig into it. We're gonna dig into it. Okay. All right, we're a third of the way. Let's get it. All right, the sabbatical and jubilee years to let the land lie follow the sabbatical year. We can't do that. To cease from tilling the land sabbatical year, we can't do that. We don't even know what year it is. Right? We don't know what year it is. And then it's the land over there, right? Not to till the ground, we can't do that. Not to do any work on the trees, can't do that. Uh, anything that says the sabbatical year, we're not doing. We can't do it. To release debts in the seventh year, we don't know what year we're in. What year is the seventh year, right? Not to demand return of the loan after sabbatical year. So that's the year of Jubilee. We can't do it. We don't even know what Jubilee is. At least I don't think so. Unless there's a calendar out there that's keeping track, I might be wrong. But either way, anything with the land, that's over there. It's specifically for the promised land. That land shall rest, right? Not to refrain from making a loan or poor man because of the release of the loans of sabbatical year. Again, I'm not. No, there's to assemble the people to hit the Torah at the close of the seventh year. To count the years of Jubilee by years and by cycles of 7 years. I mean, we can do that, but where did it start? So unless we know the exact year that we in, that they came into the land, right, we don't know. Right, that'll be kind of tough. Not to cultivate the sword, nor do any work of the trees in the Jubilee year. Keep the Jubilee year but holy, not to reap the aftermath of the field that grew of itself. So again, this whole little section, I feel like I'm not sending it over. I feel like no. I feel like no. I mean, because there's no way to track that, right? And I'm cool with that. I'm not gonna fight over that, right? So that was a whole little section. The court and judicial procedure, right? To appoint judges and officers in every community of Israel. I feel like no, because that's for over there, right? Not to appoint as a judge a person who is not well versed in the laws of the Torah, even if he's an expert in other branches of knowledge. But see, this is where it gets tricky because honestly, if we was all together, well, I guess I mean, see, I feel like no, we scattered, right? So nah, we can't do this. We can't do this because the context is within Israel, right? But then I'm thinking, okay, well, in our own where we're scattered at within that community, I guess you could, yeah, I would say yeah. Yeah, I would say yeah. I'll send these up. But then I'm thinking about because we still gotta have some kind of order, right? There still had to be, if something happens, and then parties that we can judge worldly matters, right? So I would say yeah. I would say yeah. But see, just talking through it, right? So I would say yeah to that. Not to the point. Yeah. To adjudicate cases of purchase and sale, yeah. I think that's what they did next. They were selling them lands and giving it all to the church, right? To judge cases of liability of a paid depository. I think it's just different cases of inheritance, damage, you know, negligent, right? This is being negligent. Uncovered pit, that's negligent. So we can judge cases of damage by people being negligent. Beasts, injured by beasts, so dogs, cats, more, you know, across the board. Of course, you got the farm animals. Yeah, trespass of cattle, damage caused by fire, uh, to adjudicate cases of damage caused by gratuitous depository. Okay, to adjudicate other cases between plaintiff and defendant. Yeah, not to curse a judge. Yeah, that one who possesses evidence shall testify. Yeah, yeah, we see that in Israel right now. A lot of evidence coming forward, right? Um, on some stuff. I'm not gonna get into it, but if you have the evidence, you shall testify in court. That is Torah. If you have evidence on a matter of sin, not being messy, it has to be about sin, right? You got it. You got to you shall bring that forward. right? Now, is the internet the court? Nah, court of opinion, the court of public opinion. Not to testify, you can't lie, not to testify falsely. See, and again, this is the Ten Commandments, right? The Ten Commandments, right? So let's go there. What was it? Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. That's not necessarily just lying. Of course, lying is bearing false witness, but this right here, this is in a judicial setting. You can't be called to a trial, to a judgment hearing, and lie and bear false witness. This is what this is about, right? Of course, the other lie, let me see. Let me just look up lie. I think it's in Numbers. Oh, here we go. Leviticus 19. You should not steal, neither deal falsely, neither lie to one another. That's a direct lie. Like, I'm lying to you. You know what I'm saying? Like that's but false witness, bear false witness. That's in a judicial setting. That's perjury, right? That's basically what they're saying. So again, Christians will say, "Oh, we ain't supposed to lie." Well, lying is found in Leviticus. That's not what they're thinking about lie is not part of the Ten Commandments. That Ten Commandments is bear false witness, perjury, which is a form of lying. Don't twist my words, which is a form of lying, right? But I can lie right here. Leviticus 19, that lie is not bearing false witness, right? Perjury and lying is two different things. I hope that makes sense to you. That a witness who has testified in a capital case shall not lay down the law in that particular case. I think that was saying if you, whatever you thought to do, it should be done to you. 35:30. Let's see. Let's see. Whoso killeth any person, the murder shall be put to death by the mouth of witnesses, but one witness shall not testify against any person to cause him to death. Okay, never mind. I was wrong. Shall not lay down the law. But either way, we're not putting nobody to death. Like that's outside of our hands. We can't do that. That a transgressor shall not testify. The court shall not accept the testimony of a close relative of defendant in the matter of capital punishment. That's true. Not to hear one of the parties to a suit in the absence of the other party. See, and that's why both parties got to be present. So even with counsel, right? Even with marital counsel, it's not good just to counsel one spouse, right? Both spouses got to be present because then there's a disconnect. Then it's he say, she say, right? Even in a matter of a suit, and you suing somebody, y'all both got to show up for the court date, right? Simple as that. To examine witnesses thoroughly, not to decide a case on the evidence of a single witness. So nothing is decided. Nothing is ever decided on one witness, right? And that's why they had a hard time um, crucifying Christ because the witnesses they couldn't. The false witnesses that they did bring forward, their stories never really disconnected, right? So finally, I mean, it was based on Christ's own testimony, that he pretty much got condemned, right? But as far as the false witnesses, they couldn't ever come together with one accord because it can't be just by one witness, right? And that's why you got to have two or three scriptures to establish a matter. The scripture is a witness, right? You can't have just a one-off scripture and build a whole doctrine off of that. It's not how it goes. To give the decision according to the majority when there is a difference of opinion among the members of the Sanhedrin as to matters of law. Okay, so this is good because of course we're not in the Sanhedrin, but let's say you got a camp and it's an opinion about the law and what it kind of You know, you got to go with the majority, right? And that's just it. Just simplifies everything. Not to decide in capital cases according to the view of the majority when those who are for condemnation exceed by one only those who are for the acquittal. So if 20 people want this man executed, but 19 want them acquitted, you can't go with the majority. Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, neither shall thou speak in a case to decline after many to rest judgment. Oh, speak in a cause to decline after many to rest judgment. So yeah, we can do that. Uh, that in capital cases, one that argued for acquittal shall not later on argue for condemnation. So you can't go back and forth. But again, this is for capital cases. So even with that, I mean, we can still use the same logic, I guess, for other cases, but more specifically, this is for capital cases. So even with that, because we're not handling capital cases. To treat parties in a litigation with equal impartiality, not to render iniquitous decisions, yeah, not to favor a great man with trying a case. Yeah, it don't matter your stature. You on trial, hey, that don't mean nothing. We're all nobody. Not to take a bribe, not to be afraid of a bad man when trying a case, yeah. Not to be moved in trying a case by the poverty of one of the parties. Yeah. So now, just because a man is of great stature, you can't respect that person. And just because a person is of low stature, you can't respect that person. Oh, dang, they doing bad. So no, it's what is right and what is wrong, right? Not to revert the judgment of strangers or orphans, not to pervert the judgment of a sinner, a person, a person poor in fulfillment of the commandments, not to render a decision on one's personal opinion, but only on the evidence of two witnesses who saw what actually occurred, right? It can't be he said, she said. Witnesses, right? Did you see it? Not to execute one guilty of a capital offense before he has stood his trial. We can't do that, but not, capital. To accept the rulings of every Supreme Court in Israel. Yeah, yeah. This is basically Acts 15, right? This is Acts 15. So when they had um, that disagreement about whether Gentiles need to be circumcised in order to be saved, they was it was Paul and Barnabas against the Jews, the Christ believing Jews. When they couldn't come to an agreement, they went down to the Supreme Court, to the chief apostle, Apostle James, and he made a rendering. He said, "This is my judgment," right? So Acts 15 is actually showing the uh, they're following Torah, right? So they went down to the Supreme Court, the high chief apostle James. James heard the matter from both sides. He heard witness testimonies from both sides, from Paul and Peter, and then he rendered his judgment in accordance with the Holy Spirit. And that's what they nobody fought against that judgment. They accepted that ruling and they wrote letters and sent it out to all the churches, right? So that's what that is. Not to rebel against the orders of the court. Yeah, so we can do that. So let's go. Let's see. So we'll start up here. So we can't do nothing with any capital cases. So even right here. So 242, we're not doing that. A witness who has testified in a capital case. But we can't do any capital cases. Right. But I think I looked at that scripture and says, don't go after the multitude of evil. Let's see. Oh, number 30. Number 35. 30. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, we're not killing nobody. Yeah, we're not doing it. Okay, the transition. So capital. So again, we're not hearing no capital murder case or capital cases because capital is murder. If y'all haven't put those two and two together. So we're not even hearing testimony or nothing. Because we can't make a ruling on it. We can do these three. These. All right. Let's see. I think that's the one with the don't go after the multitude to do evil. Thou shalt not follow the multitude of evil, neither shalt thou speak. So we can do that. Even though it says capital, or no, I don't. Yeah, we can do that. The next one is capital. But see, that's the same thing. But you see how they got the same for the same, look, three of them for the same scripture. And that's why that 613 is. You really can't go off of that. I mean, I see why people push back against that arbitrary number because that's all it is. It's just you know the most I didn't number. I feel like that. So we're gonna do no capital. Um, do all these. Oh, right. No capital. Number 261 was in this one right here. I was having an Acts 15. So they was actually doing tour again post Christ, years after Christ's resurrection. Injuries and damages. I love this one right here. To make a parapet for your roof. I'll I use this one speaking to One West. Because like how many of y'all got a parapet on? You know what I'm saying? But a parapet is basically a fence around your roof. Because in the Middle East, the roofs were flat and was basically another room. And that's why Christ said, if you're on top of your roof, don't go back down to get anything and just get out of Dodge, right? So a parapet was like a fence. So if anybody was on your roof, they wouldn't fall off and die, you know? So we can still do that if your roof is flat, right? Not to leave something that may cause hurt, save the pursued, save the pursued even at the cost of the life of the pursuer. Not to spare the pursuer, but he is to be slain before he reaches the pursued and slays his ladder or uncovers his necklace. We're not slaying nobody. Oh, not to spare. But well, he has to be slain now. So we can do these three. Yeah, anything with killing and passing judgment, we're not doing it. All right, property and property rights. Let's see, not to sell a field in the land of Israel in perpetuity. We're not in Israel, so we can't do that. Not to change the character of the open land about the cities of can't do that. The houses sold within a walled city may be redeemed within a year. Not to remove landmarks. Uh, Again, I really feel like this is well, these three right here are definitely within the land, right? But this right here, we can do that. Not to remove landmarks. So your um basically your property line, you know. If something is denoting a property line, you can't move that to make your property line bigger, right? Not to swear falsely in denial of another's property rights, not to deny falsely another property rights, never to settle in the land of Egypt. We can definitely do that. So why were people fleeing to Egypt? He told us never to settle in the land of Egypt. So come on now. Not to steal personal property, to restore that which one took by robbery, to return lost property, not to pretend not to have seen lost property, to avoid the obligation to return it. Like, come on. So these we all can do, right? Except the first three. To me, I feel like that's within the land, the actual land of Israel, right? And I know y'all, I know some of y'all probably saying like, see, how are we supposed to keep the law? And this is your opinion. This is how you feel. Well, that's where grace comes in. That's where grace isn't to go out and break the law and be good. Grace is when you're trying to keep the law and either you're off, you're working up towards uh learning it, you know what I'm saying? You didn't know, that's where that grace comes in because the Holy Spirit gonna teach us all things. You know what I'm saying? Like even with this, let's say this is uh let's say this a house sold within a wall city of redeemed within a year. That is true, right? If I never sell a house, I won't have to do that. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? So even with stuff that may be required, as we learn and grow in the Most High through Christ and the Holy Spirit, we're gonna learn and start walking in it. You see what I'm saying? That's where the grace comes in. The grace isn't I receive Christ, now I forfeit the law and start doing whatever I want to do because Christ died for me. His blood covered all the sins that I'm doing willingly. Like that don't make sense. This is where the grace comes in of learning and processing the Torah. What is it? As we're scattered. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it is. So I know you're probably hearing, in my opinion, I feel like, yeah, it is. It is. This is opinion based. This isn't factual, right? This isn't again, a one all be all. This is just a foundation to where people can actually see a video of somebody going through the laws and saying what still applies and what don't still apply, right? And seeing an actual and seeing actual laws and like, you know what, I can't do that. So from now on, I'm not going to neuter my dogs. Is that going to hurt you? Is that going to make Christ's sacrifice uh, that less important in your life and that less effective in your walk? No. Why is it so hard not to neuter your dogs? You know what I'm saying? Like it's crazy. So we got that one. Okay, here we go. Criminal laws. Not to slay an innocent person. We can do that. Not to kill nobody. Not to kidnap somebody. Not to rob by violence. Not to defraud. Not to covet. Not to crave something that belongs to them. Not to indulge in evil thoughts and sights. Yeah, that's good. We can keep all these, and we'll be better for it if we did as a people. Just these right here. We'll be better as a people. Okay, punishment restitution. Now, we're not doing no punishment. Look at this. That the court shall pass sentence of death by decapitation with the sword. We're not doing that by strength. We're not decapitating nobody. We're not strangling nobody. And we're not burning nobody with fire. We're not stoning nobody. We're not hanging, right? To hang the body, to hang the dead body of one who has incurred that penalty. No, we're not doing that, right? That the dead body of an executed criminal shall not remain hanging on the tree overnight. We're not going to be hanging anybody anyway. So we're not doing that. To enter executed on the day of execution. We're not doing that. Not to accept ransom from a murderer. That we can do, right? If you know somebody murdered somebody, don't be taking a bribe from them. Simple as that. All right. To exile one who committed accidental homicide. I mean, yeah, you pretty much like, "Look, that ain't got nothing to do with me, you know. Uh, so it's not the exile as far as getting them out of the city or state or whatever, but it's kind of like exiling them from your life, right? You can use common sense, right? You say, nah, you, you committed accidental homicide, bro. Like, I don't want a part of that, right? To establish 6 cities of refuge, no. To accept ransom from it, not to accept ransom, yeah. So as to relieve him from exile. No, we can't. I mean, we're not exiling nobody. So I'm gonna take that off. To exile one who's committed, because that all goes together. So let me take that off. See, this is real time. Just going through it. I'm gonna take that off. All right. I'm gonna take that off. Okay. To decapitate the heifer in the manner prescribed in expiation of a murder on the road, the perpetrator of which remained undiscovered. Let's see what that's about. Deuteronomy 21:4. It said, and the elders of that city shall bring down the heifer unto a rough valley which is neither eared or nor sown, and shall strike off that heifer's neck there in the valley. Let me see. Oh, okay. So if you find a dead body in the city that is closest to, the elders of that city shall take a heifer which has not been wrought with, and which not have drawn in the yoke, and they shall kill that heifer. Yeah, we're not doing it. Yeah, we're not doing it. Yeah, we don't have to do that. Not to plow or sow rough valley, which have, to judge a thief to pay compensation or in certain cases suffer death. Now, not the death part, but compensate. Thief is gonna compensate. We can still do that. That he who afflicts a bodily injury shall pay monetary compensation. Yeah. To impose a penalty of 50 shekels upon a seducer. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I talked about that. That's the bride price. You take a woman, you're gonna have to pay that. And she still might not be your wife because the father has to decide. Yeah. Not, not to inflict punishment on the Shabbat, because some punishment were inflicted by fire. So you can't kindle a fire on Shabbat. So if your sentence was by fire, you got to wait till the first day of the week. Man, come on. That's great. I mean, we can still do the stripes. Let me see which ones. What is that? 298. Yeah, so we can do all this. But not to inflict punishment, that's definitely not what the Torah says. But see, that's where you gotta read for yourself. And that's why we're gonna go. We're really gonna go through the next video. Like not to inflict punishment. I mean, that's common sense, obviously. If your punishment was being burned by fire, you cannot be burned on Shabbat because you're not supposed to kindle a fire on Shabbat. To punish the wicked by the infliction of charges, yeah. I mean, I guess yeah. I mean, but who doing the not to spare the offender in imposing the prescribed penalties on one that's caused damage. Damage. Yeah, because I don't think the damage was. If you caused damage, you wasn't. It wasn't a death penalty. You either had to pay something or you got whipped. Um, to do unto fault when says they. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not to punish anyone who has committed an offense under duress. And so that's what this. Um, I like to say, like, if you're like, if a family don't have any food, I believe there's a law saying like you can go steal food because you're under you're. I mean, I think this is it actually. But as long as you still got to pay it back. I mean, so I guess it's not really stealing, but this might be it. 22, 26. There, I do remember reading something like that. Am I tripping? Oh, that's for the damsel. She caught in the field. But there is a law. If if you really need it, um, you can take it. As long as you gotta pay it, you still gotta pay it back. All right, prophecy. Here we go. Woo, it's a good one. To heed the call of every prophet in each generation, provided that he neither adds to nor takes away from the Torah. Yeah. Not to prophesy falsely. Yeah. Not to refrain from putting a false prophet to death. Now we can't put him to death. We can not be in fear of that. All right. So yeah, we can do that. And again, so these prophets, look, that's it says to heed the call of every prophet in each generation, provided that he neither adds to nor takes away from the Torah. So these self-proclaimed prophets that say Torah is done away with, they're false prophets. Simple as that. Not to make a graven image, yeah. Not to make any figures of ornament, even if they are not worshipped, yeah. Not to make idols for others, not to use ornament for any object of worship, not to make use of an idol or its accessory objects, not to drink wine of idolaters, not to worship an idol in the way in which it is usually worship. Yeah. And we coming up on Easter. What's today? Good Friday, supposedly? So-called Good Friday. On them eggs and false worship. Not to bow down to an idol, not to prophesy in the name of an idol. Oof. Name Jesus, people who prophesy in the name of Jesus. Not to hearken to one who prophesies in the name of an idol. Don't even listen to him. Not to lead the children of Israel straight to idolatry, not to entice Israel to idolatry, to destroy idolatries, ordinances, not to love the enticer to idolatry, not to give up hating the enticer, not to save the enticer. Oh, we can't do no capital punishment. Man, this is longer than I thought. But I think the next video will be, let's see. So we can't do any capital punishment, right? So we're not doing that. So a person whom he attempted to entice to idolatry shall not urge pleas for the acquittal of the enticer. What is that? Let's see what that is. But thou shalt surely kill him. Thine hand shall be first upon him. Put him to death. Yeah, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. Not to swear by an idol to worship. You know, not to turn one attention to idolatry. Not to adopt the institutions of idolaters, nor the customs. Come on now. Not to pass a child through the fire of Molech. Yeah. And that's modern day abortion. Not to suffer anyone practicing witchcraft to live. We can't do that. We're not killing anybody. So these we can do. Like I said, I can't stress that enough. Anything about killing people, we cannot do. We're not within the rights to do that. Whether witchcraft or anything, we can't do that. Not to practice every time for season. Oh, astrology. Let's go. Leviticus 19:26. Let's see what that really says. It says, "Ye shall not eat anything with blood, neither shall you use enchantment or observe times." Ooh, yeah. Not to practice superstitions, witchcraft, doing things based on signs and potions. Yeah. Not to consult with familiar spirits or ghosts. Not to consult with wizards. Not to practice specific magic by using stones, herbs, or objects. Not to practice magical practices in general. Not to practice the art of casting spells over snakes and scorpions. Not to inquire of a familiar spirit or ghost. Not to seek the dead. Not to inquire of a wizard. Not to read the entire bill, like idolaters, right? Not to round the corners of the head, as the idolatrous priests do. Not to cut oneself or make incisions in one's flesh in grief, like the idolaters. Not to tattoo the body, not to make a bald spot for the head or for the dead, not to paint a tree for worship, not to set up a pillar, not to show favor to idolaters, not to make a covenant with the seven, all the seven nations. Yeah, I think we could on that. I think Christ put, he broke the wall of petition. Spoken of in Ephesians 2 for that one. That was those laws. Not to settle idolaters in our land. Can't do that. We don't have a land. I mean, but I get, see, it's like, do we say anything with the land is Israel? Or do we say now we take that to where we reside and where we're scattered at in captivity? You know? So I'll say that. I mean, we can't, no, we don't control the land. We can't be keeping people out the neighborhood because they're idolaters, right? We can't slay anybody, not too good to see that being led. I mean, yeah, we can do that. It's not like we can physically do that anyway, but we can not to make use of the property of the city that has been led astray. I mean, we in captivity, so the whole nation's led astray. So I don't think we do that. Okay, halfway there, more than halfway there. Sheesh. Agriculture and animal husbandry. Not to crossbreed, not to sow different kinds of seeds, not to eat the fruit of the tree for 3 years from the time it was planted. We can do that. That the fruit of fruit bearing trees in the fourth year of their planting shall be sacred, like the second tithe in eaten in Jerusalem. So it says like, right? So it's not talking about the second tithe, but the fruit of a fruit bearing tree in the fourth year. So we can count from the tree they planted, not to sow grain or herbs in the vineyard, not to eat the produce of diverse seeds sown in the vineyard, not to work with beasts and different species. So yeah, we can do all. I don't know. So if y'all notice, like we maybe got like maybe 50 that we can't do so far. Yeah, we can do these. Man should not wear women's clothing. Women should not wear man's clothing. Do not mix wool and linen mixed together. That don't mean you can't wear linen and cotton or wool and cotton. It says linen and wool, right? It's a difference. We can't redeem anything. Um, because part of that redemption is taken to the priest. Let's see. Exodus 13:13. Well, that was still in Egypt. Well, so every firstling of an ass thou shalt redeem with a lamb. And if thou would not redeem it, then thou shalt break its neck, and all the firstborn of man among thy children shalt thou redeem. So that's pretty much you can't redeem anything. I mean, you can I guess the firstborn. Obviously, we don't have to kill the firstborn, so we can do that. Just give it to the Most High. We'll have to look into what actually that redeem means, right? Um, high priest, priests, and Levites. We're not doing none of this, right? We don't have the Levitical priesthood, and there's no temple, right? So we're not doing none of this. There's not even a reason to read this. That the priest shall put on priestly vestments for the service, not to tear the high priest's robe. That the ordinary priest should not defile himself by contact with any dead. The sons of Aaron defile themselves for the deceased relatives. The priest shall not marry a divorced woman. Again, all these people talking about they from Levi. You very well may be from Levi. But how do you know you're from the line of Aaron, right? Because the line of Aaron was a priest, right? So, and then there's no, um, so all this stuff about priests we're not doing. People trying to be a priest. Christ is a high priest, like we're playing. Uh, there's no man that is a high priest. No, there's no. That a person with a visible blemish should not enter the sanctuary further than the altar. We don't have to do that because there's no sanctuary. That a priest who is unclean, to send the unclean out of the camp, that is out of the sanctuary. We don't have the sanctuary. Again, this is all nothing. We cannot do none of this. So how many is that? That's from 372 to 401. So about 29 laws right there we can't do. Tithe, taxes, and Hebrew offerings. Uh-oh. Here we go. That an uncircumcised person shall not eat of the heave offering. And the same applies to the other holy thing. This rule is inferred from the law of the paschal offering by cemetery phrase. So that's been done away with because now you don't have to be circumcised, right? Back then you had to be circumcised as far as a Gentile, not Israelite, in order to partake in Passover. But come to the New Testament, you don't have to. So I'm not even gonna send that over. Let's see, Exodus 22:28. And mind you, all these tithes is not money. It's straight agriculture. It's straight um, like fruits, right? It's never money. 22:28. Produce. Thou shalt not revile the gods nor curse them. Maybe it's 29. Thou shalt not delay to offer the fruits, the first of thy ripe fruits and of thy liquors. The firstborn of thy son that shall give unto me. Wait a minute. Liquors. Liquors. Juice. So yeah, yeah. I thought y'all had one. Yeah, I thought y'all could drink that Hennessy, huh? Nah. And that's the only where it's from. Yeah, I thought y'all had one. But yeah, I mean, that's not really to offer the first fruits. But again, that's offering. So that comes with the temple. So to give a half a shekel every year, we're not doing that. The priest called the Kohen with unclean shall not give. That a person who is not of the community no, that a sojourner with a sojourner with a Kohen, with a priest, or his hired servant shall not eat. Either way, it's not eat of the holy things. Again, this is all priestly stuff. To set apart the tithe of the produce, 1/10 of the produce after taking out the teruma, the Levites, no, the tithe cattle. But see, again, that has to go to the temple, right? Not to sell the tithe of the herd. That the Levites shall set apart 1/10 of the tithe. So if you look at the prescriptions of tithing, it was either produce or livestock. You took it to Jerusalem, or if it's too much, you sold it, took the money to Jerusalem, and then spent the money there, and you could buy whatever you want. So either way, the tithe, we're not. See, not to eat the second tithe of cereal outside Jerusalem. See, not consume outside. See, you gotta go to Jerusalem. Not to forsake the Levites, but their gifts due should be given to them so that they might. Again, this is part of your tithes because I believe it was the third or fourth tithe. No, it was like three different tithes. I mean, we probably won't go into it, but because it's not required. But one of the tithes was given to the Levites. Like it was strictly for them. I think it was the second tithe. Um, New portions, see, to give the first of the things to the priest, set apart a small portion of the grain, wine, and oil for the priest, not to expand the prestige of the second tithe on anything but food and drink, right? So remember I said if it was too much to carry, you sold it, take the money, man, you gotta buy food and drink. Let's go to that. Deuteronomy 26 and 14. It said, I have not eaten thereof in my morning, neither have I taken it. Yeah, okay. 26:13. Then thou shalt say for the Lord thy God, I have brought away thy hallowed things out of my house, and I also have given them to the Levite, and unto the stranger, to the fatherless, and to the widow, according to all thy commandments which thou hast commanded me. I have not transgressed thy commandments, neither have I forgotten. So that's the tithe. See, when thou hast made an end of tithing, all the tithes of thy increase, the third year, which is the year of tithing, and has given it unto the Levite, the stranger and the fatherless, and the widow, that they may eat within thy gates and be filled. So that third year, that third tithe, in the third year, your tithe was given to the Levite, the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, right? It wasn't it wasn't given to the pastor, and it wasn't monetary. It was for their benefit, so they could eat, right? So so again, all the second tithe, all this stuff. So we're not doing none of that. So 402 to 425, that's another 20 we don't have to do. The temple, sanctuary, and sacred object. Okay, so now yeah, we can do this, and not to mount the altar. So not to build an altar of hewn stone. I mean, who built an altar anyway? But we can keep it. I mean, not to remove the stakes from the ark, to build a sanctuary, to set the showbread. See, again, this is all temple services. There's no temple, right? If y'all want, y'all can pause it and read through here. Um, but yeah, now to keep fire always burning on the altar of the burnt offering. This is deep. This is probably one of my favorite laws because the altar is where you made the sacrifice was always burning, right? And that's why it says Christ makes intercession for us continually, day and night. He's always on that altar, presenting himself as a sacrifice to the Most High. And this is just a precursor of that fire always burning. So Christ is always presenting himself as that Christ, or making intercession for us day and night. That's just one of my favorite laws right there. Not to extinguish the fire of the altar. The Kohen shall not enter the sanctuary with disheveled hair. So again, all this stuff is an intoxicated person shall not enter. And I think, let's go to this. I really feel that's why them boys got killed. They offered up that fire, they was drunk. Let me see. Leviticus 10:9. Look, and Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took either of them, his censer, and put fire therein, and put incense thereon, and offered strange fire before the Lord, which he commanded them not. And there went out fire from the Lord and devoured them, and they died before the Lord. Then Moses said unto Aaron, this is it that the Lord spake, saying, I will be sanctified in them that come nigh me, and before all the people I will be glorified. And Aaron held his peace. And Moses called Mishael and Elizaphan, the sons of Uziel, the uncle of Aaron, and said unto them, come near, carry your brethren from before the sanctuary out of the camp. Right? So they didn't die. Now look what the Lord said. And the Lord spoke unto Aaron, saying, do not drink wine nor strong drink, thou nor thy sons with thee, when ye go into the tabernacle of the congregation, lest ye die. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations. I feel like them boys was drunk, and they did, and that's why this law is happening. So, any you can see in Scripture when something happened, judgment that wasn't already established. When somebody broke a law that wasn't already established, and judgment came, then the Lord circled back and made a law for that instance, right? We see that in the wilderness with the Egyptian boy, right? He cursed the name of the Most High. They set him aside. The Most High passed judgment, said he should be stoned. And then there was a law produced saying, whoever cursed the name of the Most High of his God shall be stoned. Same here. Them boys was drunk. They offered up that fire. Judgment came. The Most High circled back and said, hey, from now on, do not drink wine or strong drink when you go into the tabernacle, right? So that's what I feel. They was drunk. Let's see. To reserve a sanctuary, to reserve a sanctuary that when the ark is carried, it should be carried on the shoulder. To observe the second Passover, we can definitely do that. Okay, let's see. So we can do the Passover. To eat the flesh of the Passover lamb on it with unleavened bread, we can do that. Not to break the bone, the sound of the trumpets. Oh, at the offering of sacrifice at times of trouble. No. So we can do the Passover stuff. Right. Let's see. Did I? I did. Bear with me. Hold on. Hold on. All right. So we can do that. Sound the trumpets at the offering of sacrifice. We're not doing that. To watch over the edifice continually. What's that? Numbers 18. Let's see what that is. And thy brother also the trouble of the trouble for join to the end. And they shall keep thy charge and charge of all the tabernacle. They shall not come out the vessels. So yeah, we're not doing that. Not to allow the sanctuary to remain on watch. Not doing that. That an offering shall be brought by one who has an error committed, trespassing certain things. So we're not doing that. Not just for anything in the sanctuary. Not doing that. Right? Sacrificing offerings. Sanctify the firstling of a clean cattle and offer it up. To slay the Paschal lamb, we can do that. We saw Christ do it. He told his disciples to prepare it. So it wasn't necessarily the Levi priest had to do it. From the text that we see in the New Testament. So again, all this Passover we can do. We can do. Right? The uncircumcised, okay, we already dealt with that. Not just all that. Okay, we can do that. So again, there's no sanctuary, right? There's no sanctuary. All right, to bring the first fruits to sin, we can't do that. Sin offering, a guilt offering shall be eaten. We can't do that. That one not of the seed of Aaron shall not. Okay, okay, we can't do the bill. We can't do the burnt offering. Can't do the meal offering. Can't offer up leaven or honey. We're not making sacrifices. They're not doing that. And the individual shall bring a sin offering. Nope, we're not doing any sin offerings. To offer a sacrifice of varying value in accordance with one means. We can't do that. There's no temple. Not to sever completely the head of a fowl brought as a sin offering. We can't do that. Sin offering, anything with sin offering, we definitely not doing. Mm-mm. So we can't do any of these offerings. And again, because there's no temple, we definitely not doing a sin offering. Even if there was a temple, we wouldn't be doing a sin offering. But we could do a peace offering, right? Um, Not to eat the holy things that become unclean. No, not near the holy sacrifice. So again, all this is eating stuff off the altar. Okay, so no, that a woman after childbirth shall bring an offering. So we saw Mary do that, but we can't. We don't have nowhere to go. A leper shall be sacrificed. Shall bring a sacrifice. So again, remember Christ told that leper what he healed, go to the temple and give what Moses has prescribed, right? And show yourself to the priest. So again, we can't, but we don't have a temple, so we don't have the no and cleanse, no. So again, y'all can pause the video and kind of read through this, but no, all this stuff has to do with sacrifice, and we're not doing because we don't have a temple. Now, I'm not talking about the millennial reign. It's about now, right now, we cannot do this, right? To offer with no offering of the omer on the morrow after the first day of Passover. Can't offer that up. Not to eat bread made of new grain before the omer and barley has been offered up on the second day of Passover. What is that? Leviticus 23:14. What is that? And you shall eat neither bread nor parched corn. Oh, no green ears. Okay. But either way, we can't do that because it's an offering. Not to eat the bread made of new grain. Not to eat roast grain for the time. But see, it's before what? Before the offering. And bring grave loaves for that sacrifice. So no, to offer up additional sacrifices on Passover, we can't do that. Okay, that one who vows to the Lord the monetary value of a person shall pay the amount appointed in the scripture portion. Leviticus 27:2. What is that about? Let's see. Speaking to the children of Israel and say unto them, when a man shall make a single vow, that person shall be for the estimation. In thy estimation shall be the male from 20 years old even unto 6 years old, even in thy estimation shall be 50 shekels of silver. Hmm. All right, this is vows. But it's after the shekel of the testimony at a sanctuary. Mm, yeah, you're not doing that. All right. I think that's pretty much like, yeah, we're not doing that. To decide in regard to dedicated property as to which is sacred to the Lord and response to the priest. So that's so applicable to the Lord. To make confession before the Lord any sin that one has committed when bringing a sacrifice and at other times. So again, we can still confess our sins, but we're not bringing a sacrifice. Not to put olive oil, no offering. No, since this is all offerings, we're not to do. Look at all these. Look, to offer up. No, we're not doing none of this. None of these offerings. None of these sacrifices. Not to eat unblemished firstling outside Jerusalem. Yeah, because we are outside of Jerusalem. We can do that. I say we can do that. But when we look into it, it might not even apply. So burnt offering, sons of Aaron, after each special sacrifice, the priest shall have the first fruits. Take trouble, bring sacrifice and sacrifices of Israel. Not to do work with cattle set apart for sacrifice. So again, that was a lot, right? 560. That's 30-fold. That's a lot. From 459 to five, that's almost 100. 100 laws that we don't have to do. It's not applicable. So we're almost done. Almost done. All right, ritual, purity, and impurity. I mean, defiled by contact. Foods become defiled by contact with unclean things, yeah. Shall be unclean, yeah. Now, when we get into this, I don't think the cleanness to be unclean, I think you wash and you just unclean it to the morning. There's no sacrifices needed, right? And I don't think you have to present your body to the priest. I think that's only with leprosy or with the blemish, right? Or with mold in the house. That's when the priest has to come out. But I think being defiled by contact, but we're going to put that over Uh, the leper is unclean. We're gonna put that over so we can look into it to see what that kind of looks like, right? The leper is unclean and defiles, but there's different. There's different types of leprosy, right? Being albino was considered leprosy, but once they saw that there was no boil, there was no scab, there was no nothing, then you're clean. You just consider a leper, but it could be albino. It could be um, where the pigment turns white. I forget the name of it. That's called. I'm not trying to disrespect those that deal with that, but that's considered leprosy, right? Then you actually have the sores and things of that nature. That the leper shall be universally recognized as such by the prescribed mark, so too all other unclean persons should declare themselves as such. I mean, the leper's garment is unclean and defiles a leper's house. So, yeah. See the compilation defiles. So that's, um, uh, either, fluid, ejaculate fluid or, you know, uh, so menstruating woman, undefiled. Uh, of course, I think these are definitely good to look at, honestly, because it goes into the woman with the issue of blood. When she touched Yeshua, why was she even in the camp? Why was she in the city? And people try to say that made Yeshua unclean, but no. If Yeshua would have touched her, he would have been unclean, right? But uh, the woman touched him. You got to think about it like this. If I know, just think about it just in today's society, how messy people is, right? If I know I'm unclean, I'm miserable, right? And I see you happy, I can go over there and mess you up by touching you. Now you unclean. That's not the wisdom of the Most High. But if you touch me, you claim me being unclean. That's on you. So now you're unclean. That's how sovereign the logic and wisdom of the Most High is. So if an unclean person touches another person, that doesn't make them unclean. That doesn't make the other person unclean because they can just go around touching the whole camp. No, but if you touch me, that makes you unclean, and we'll see that. Okay, lepers and leprosy, not to draw off the hair of the skull, that the procedure of cleansing leprosy, whether of a man or of a house, takes place with cedar wood, hyssop, scarlet thread, two birds, and running water. So we'll look at. I'll put that up. We'll look at that. I think that is very interesting, and it might be something that people might bring up. But what about being clean and undefiled and all this stuff? So it's good to look into. Um, so we don't have a king. Obviously, most Christ Yeshua is our king. So and he didn't follow these because he wasn't a king yet. But on the second in the second coming, he will be a king, and he will have to honor these. Um, Nazarites. I mean, I guess we can put it over. If you really want to be a Nazarite, it's just uh, like what we saw in Acts. I think there's a sacrifice. Yeah, that the Nazarite shall shave his hair when he brings his offering at the completion of the period of his Nazariteship, or within that period if he has become defiled. So again, that's what Acts was talking about. Uh, but yeah, I don't see why that would not work. We're not doing no wars um, because nobody's the U.S. Army is not the army of the Mossad, so they're not gonna do all this. Um, but I guess you could not to keep alive any individual for seven. God dang, everybody got to exterminate the seven. Not to destroy fruit trees wantonly or in warfare. I guess That's about the only one that makes sense. Everything else is not happening. Like nobody's over there taking concubines. I mean, yeah. So, um, all right, that's it right there. I always remember what Amalek did. I mean, I guess we can remember, but we're not destroying the seed of Amalek, though, right? Um, I guess some of that stuff, but unclean to have, I mean, that makes sense. To keep the place sanitary, that makes sense. But that was the camp that was in the wilderness, not to offer a peace, not to the great reform taker. Um, yeah, we're not selling nobody. Yeah, so that's pretty much it, right? Uh, so stop sharing. So there's that. So that's pretty much what we got. And I mean, I wouldn't keep count, but I would say about half of them we can't even keep, right? So again, this is just a list of, are we able to do it? Can we physically still do it? You know, as you saw, most of the stuff with the temple, the priests, kings, war, capital punishment, um, sacrifices, stuff like that is a no-go. You know, but the more, personable laws like good business practices, loving your neighbor, loving God, we can still do that, right? Dietary laws, sexual relations, you know, we can still do that. So that was that's all for this video. The next video, I'm gonna reformulate that list. We're gonna go through that list and kind of see what that looks like. If Christ changed anything as far as like for sure, like the cleansing, um, the separation of the Moabites and Egyptians and the Edomites after the third year and all that stuff. Um, and then kind of see what Christ has fulfilled. Um, but other than that, that's that. I hope this kind of helps with the idea of, okay, what we can't keep all of it. Yeah, we're not required to keep all of it. You know, as you saw, most of the stuff was circumstantial. If you have certain stuff, if you're dealing with certain stuff, if certain situations happen to you, then you're liable for that particular law, right? So with that, I'm out. God bless you guys. Appreciate the views, the comments, the feedback. Um, share this video. I feel like this is a good teaching mechanism, a good tool to have. Like I said, I've been in the truth since about 2017, and I've never seen a video of just going through the Torah and seeing what still applies and what don't. So with that, God bless you, and I'll see you on the other side.